Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Anousha Qureshi. I'm one of the public health program coordinators here at the Hepatitis B Foundation. And a few months back, we launched the Patient Advocacy Resource Guide and Toolkit. This guide was created to help people living with hepatitis B find their voice, tell their stories, and create change, not just for themselves, but also for their communities. So I will be walking you through this guide. A little bit about this guide. It walks you through every step of becoming an advocate. It starts with understanding what advocacy really means, not just for yourself, but also for others. And it kind of helps you better understand and engage in discover your motivation and purpose, craft your personal stories, and prioritize emotional well-being and understanding, what healthy boundaries are when you are taking this journey. Because advocacy can be a very challenging step for a lot of people, especially with a disease so stigmatized like hepatitis B. So, we first start off by understanding what is patient advocacy in healthcare. So this basically includes actively speaking up for yourself or for others to promote equitable access, quality care, and informed decision making. Um, and it comes in different types. So there's community-based advocacy where you're just speaking about your own personal experiences, you're raising awareness about Hep B, you're participating in educational sessions, distributing materials, attending screening events. There's more policy, legislative focused advocacy. This focuses more on changing laws and affecting change at the policy level. So maybe you're interested in lobbying for research funding and promoting equitable access to care for people living with Hep B. If you're living in a country where hepatitis B is not protected, discrimination is something that a lot of people work on in this space as well. Then there's medical and research advocacy, so serving on clinical trials, advisory boards, participating in new uh, treatments and care models that are coming out, and kind of understanding the patient perspectives and working with other scientists and clinicians and researchers to better advocate for funding for Hep B. And then there's digital and social media advocacy. This is similar to community-based, except that it's more online and has a larger digital presence. But advocates might create social media campaigns, use their own stories to create videos or vlogs or stuff of that nature, and then use those digital tools to educate the public about Hep B, about liver cancer, and about their personal experiences. So one thing to remember is advocacy is the act of turning lived experience into collective power, where one voice becomes many and stories become catalysts for change. However, this is a process and it requires time and effort. So it's really important to kind of understand, your why. Why do you want to speak out? What about Hep B is important to you? What your interests are? Really just diving deeper into your own personal experiences. So this toolkit also includes some interactive activities to kind of help you figure those things out, like reflection prompts, what experiences have shaped your perspective on Hep B? What do you want others to understand or feel? What change do you hope to see in your community or in your countries or in the healthcare system? And then who are you advocating for? Is it for yourself, your family, for future generations, for other community members? Really just finding your why and kind of understanding your motivation behind why you want to share your story. There's another exercise in here that can help you. It's called vision mapping. So you identify issues that are most important to you about Hep B. Right. So it could be you are more passionate about reducing stigma, or you're more passionate about improving access to care, or you're more passionate about getting more diverse clinical representation um, on advisory boards, on clinical trials, and making sure different communities and populations of diverse backgrounds are included. So identifying, really just understanding what are some issues that you're more passionate about. And then defining your target communities, right? Who do you want to reach? Do you want to convey your message to healthcare providers, to policymakers, to just the general community members, to your families, or whatever it may be? And then kind of like working your way and developing goals, reflecting on the changes you want to see and the policies that you want to see. And then listing the actions that you feel called to take. So this would be different for every person, right? Some people are more comfortable and open with sharing their story publicly, right? And being on videos or being on camera, participating in public events. Some people would rather write a blog or some sort of assist with developing educational content, where they're not, the key highlights. So really just understanding what are you comfortable with and what is something that you're passionate about. With advocacy, it's really important to frame your story. What is your connection to Hep B? What moment changed your perspective that inspired you to act? And then what your call to action is. And you're going to tailor your story depending on who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to policymakers, you're going to focus more on, the urgency of prioritizing funding, of supporting change. And you're going to use stats and data to kind of show where the gaps are, and what needs to be done, like expanding screening access, expanding access to vaccination. For scientists and researchers, you want to focus more on the need for better funding to support better treatment options, or diagnostics. When you're speaking with healthcare providers, you want to center more on your own story, sharing moments where clear guidance or empathy could have made a difference if you had that experience, right? If you had an experience with a provider who may not have shown you empathy or clear guidance. So that's something you want to really address with them. And then with the general public, you really want to use your own personal experiences and relatable emotions to kind of foster that connection and help others feel less alone in their journey with Hep B. So a lot of this is about telling your story, but telling it in a way that is impactful, right? And again, who you're talking to kind of matters in that. So we have some example or message starters for different audiences, right? So for example, let's say you're talking to a policymaker, you're going to focus more on um, expanding access to screening and education, since we know that that is something that in the US and globally as well, is something that we can improve upon, right? Getting more access to free and universal access to screening and a vaccination, and showing why that's important. So you might support it with data, right? With funders or with grant makers, you might say something along the lines of, my story reflects the urgent need for community-based support. And funding programs like these can make a real difference, right? If you're looking for funding, or if you're participating in a project that's looking for funding for increasing access to community-based screening for Hep B. So really just making sure that you're, sharing your story and reflecting on it in a strategic way, and you kind of understand who, your audience is. Um, and then this guide kind of gets a little bit more into, just understanding readiness and boundaries. So again, advocacy looks different for everyone. Some people are more open and more active in their advocacy journey, right? Like I said before, you might be camera shy, or you might be someone who is willing to and is okay with being on the camera and participating in events where there's hundreds of people. Others might not want to do that. They might just want to review educational materials, or they might just want to write, a blog post or something along those lines, or be on a podcast where they're not, where they kind of have some anonymity. So for every person, that's going to look different, and that is okay. And that's one of the challenges of advocacy too, right? So just knowing and important that you have control over this journey. You don't have to tell everything. You can choose, parts of your story, what is safe for you, what is meaningful for you, what is important. Um, And then also just understanding that being this open, it comes with a sense of vulnerability and exposure, right? And that can also, require a lot of overwhelmed emotions and support. So it's really, really important to kind of have a plan in place before, during, and after any advocacy events that you participate in and practicing self-care. We have some tools to kind of help you with that, right? Whether you want to write, participate in journaling, right? Like maybe after an advocacy session, you speak at an event, you want to just debrief with someone, or you just want to write in your journal, how it went, what you felt, the emotions you experienced, things like that can be really, really helpful and reduce, that anxiety that comes with being an advocate. So, this one focuses a little bit more on some other activities that you can do. We have the reflection activity. This is a simple framework to kind of reflect on how you're navigating stigma and caring for yourself. So if there's something that's not that you started and maybe you're no longer okay with, what are thoughts or habits or environments that are no longer serving you, right? So for example, maybe you thought that you were okay with participating in public events and now you just feel overwhelmed by them. It's okay to stop that. It's okay to start something new. And it's okay to continue doing whatever it is that is helping you and supporting you. If writing blog posts monthly is something that's, helpful to you and it's where you're at, then that's where you're at. So just being more, in tune and mindful of what your capabilities are, what your limitations are, what you're comfortable with. The other is a compassionate letter that you write to yourself. So this is a writing exercise. Um, we give you some prompts, and you can certainly expand upon them. But you write a letter to your younger self at a time when you felt confused, scared, or ashamed about your Hep B status. What would you want them to know now? What would you say to them? How would you encourage them or comfort them, knowing, where you started and where you've come. So these are some tools that can kind of help you. This is a self-care planner. Um, you can use these to kind of check in with yourself on a daily basis and stay grounded as you work through this advocacy journey. And then some tips on like self-care rituals that you can participate in, like just, connecting with support groups, connecting with family members or friends, journaling, doing something creative, or taking a walk, or spending time outdoors, listening to music, things like that to kind of help you. And then finally, we share some steps to starting your journey with advocacy, right? So at the Hep B Foundation, we have many resources for that. I myself host the Be Happy podcast, and I also manage the Hep B blog, and we have tons of storytellers who join us on the podcast and write blog posts for us. And if they don't want to write it, maybe they're okay with being interviewed for a blog post. So if that's something that is of interest to you, feel free to reach out to me, and we can set something up, and maybe that's something that you're okay with. If you would like to share your story on hepbstories.org, we also have a storytelling platform where we convert your stories into videos, and that's used by the foundation to kind of raise awareness and help other people understand what it's like to live with Hep B. And then there are other ways to join and participate in different events, right? So for example, we have the HBU Advocacy Days. You can participate in webinars and community research showcases like the Hep B Community Research um, Showcase, the Hep B Community Forum, creating social media posts, um, joining research advisory panels, supporting community-based research, educating other healthcare providers, reviewing educational materials, attending conferences and events and forums, and just getting involved with the foundation as well. So there are many different things that you can do, and the most important thing to remember is that advocacy is, different for every single person, and you want to start where you're most comfortable at. And that's going to look different for every single person. So that is it. You can find this guide on hepbstories.org, and thank you so much for joining.